latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is quite a bizarre story where the UK's first ever trans judge has taken the UK government to court over the Supreme Court's decision made about transgender people. And
hello, today, this video we are going to be talking about Craig Houston and his battle with depression. And we're going to have a look at that. It's always funny when we start talking about Craig Houston. Craig Houston's battle for depression. Okay, that's what we're going to have a quick look at. It's going to be a quick video. It's going to be a 20-minute moan.
The UK government to court over the Supreme Court's decision made about transgender people and women's rights in general.
Now, we'll just stop there. That wasn't about women's rights. I actually do wonder if he knows he's at it. I think he probably does. I think he does know he's at it, but that wasn't about women's rights. It was J.K. Rowling spent over £70,000, as far as I understand it, to take the Scottish Government to court over the definition of a woman, which was the findings were that a definition of a woman was a female definition of woman. So woman is a different word from female, obviously. It's not about women's rights. He's sort of saying it is. We've already talked about what's going to happen, and this is what he's talking about, and that's what Victoria McLeod's doing. She's taking the British government to the European Court of Human Rights. But really, in this video, we're going to look at his attitude to this and how, well, we're going to look at the hypocrisy of it. That's what we're going to do.
Transgender people and women's rights in general.
Sidetracked.
So, this story, now before I start, I didn't know there was a single trans judge in the UK. I had never gave it a thought. It's not the kind of thing that bothers me so much. But
right, if it doesn't bother you, Craig, why are you doing so many videos about it? Why are you pushing this stuff? You've done several videos about trans people, this transgender judge. You've done quite a few and you've talked about it quite a lot. You seem to be quite happy to put videos out. You haven't talked about it to me, of course, because you don't want to talk. You just want to have sycophants that agree with you. I know that, I get that, right? But you seem to have a bit of a strange obsession with this. Like,
this person, Victoria McLeod, as they are known now, is very front and forward about saying, I'm a trans judge and I'm the first in the UK, and up until retired a couple of months ago, the only one, right? Now, before I cover the story, peculiar differences between both the videos, then I'll come on to the actual story about taking the UK government to court, right? So the first one is Victoria McLeod on a podcast just discussing general things, Equality Act and other legal matters. So let's just have a little look at this appearance on our TV screens.
I'm just across the way from the building, and it's good to see that the project has gone from strength to strength, and that the outputs have come to this fruition.
So, to give you my opinion on that, and I would like to know yours, can you tell me if the person...
He doesn't want to know yours. I'll just like to stress that out. He only wants to know yours if you agree with what he's saying. That's all he wants. He doesn't want your opinion. So he's not being truthful or honest. There. So, okay now. He's not been honest.
That you were listening to there sounded like a man or a woman.
Right, so the point of my video here is Victoria McLeod is a woman, or if you decide she's a man, she is a living human being. She has feelings, she has rights, she exists, and she should be treated with respect. Like, she's a judge, like any other person should be. So, the last thing you'd expect... So what he's actually doing here, he's actually committing a hate crime under the Scottish legislation, and probably the English as well, the British. So don't call it English, it's British. Westminster, the UK government. So we'll not cover all this, but throughout this video, he could quite easily be arrested for a hate crime as far as I can see. It's not the most serious hate crime, but it's a hate crime. And it falls into the definition of a hate crime. And so what sort of I find strange about it is...
Because if that person phoned me, I would automatically presume and assume that that was a man I was talking to. Now, if that person presented herself in front of me, I may be thinking, is that a man? If it was not for slightly unkept style of hair.
So he's starting to get a wee bit, I mean, who cares about her hair? You know, like, so he's going through, he's kind of explaining the difficulties of transitioning from male to female is what he's kind of explaining, unwittingly. Voice, the hair, you know, the general appearance. So we're sort of like, what is the difference between men and women? And traditionally, for the last, 100 years, women have looked a certain way, and it changes. It has changed. But that, we don't really want to get into all that, but we have got into it a wee bit, and we will do in another video when we talk about Nicola Sturgeon and Arlene Foster. They're examples of genetic women who are sort of masculine looking, and I think that's just that genetics come out sort of differently. So it's like, the way I see it is there's two circles. There's male and female circles, the biological circles, and you're always going to get people round about the edges of these circles. So like Nicola Sturgeon and Arlene Foster, for example, would be at the edge of the female circle, where they sort of look masculine, and that's just the way the genetics have worked out with them. I think you're always going to get that when you've got two circles. So what he's talking about is what people look like and how they come across. So
I would probably be convinced that was a man. Because it sounds like a man, looks like a man, I would consider that's a man. However, remember the voice. Remember the unkept hair. Remember the distinct lack of makeup. Remember the no need for spectacles. And now I want to show you a video of the same person on TV 2 days ago.
The supply manager brain breach of a case called Goodwin, which is what led to the legislation permitting people to change their legal sex. So the United Kingdom's going to have to address that, and I believe that the Strasbourg Court, European Court of Human Rights, is going to tell it that it must. This is really a case and guidance that's been promoted by a very tiny minority of British people. It's not reflective of...
If you look at the guy there, and there's Dr. McLeod, he's got a suit jacket on, a shirt, you know, he's got glasses on, so he doesn't have a tie on, but, you know, he's not wearing a hoodie, he's not wearing tracksuit bottom, well, he might be, but he's not wearing casual clothes. He's smart and presentable, and that's because he's at work and he's interviewing. And Dr. McLeod has suit, makeup, hair's brushed, glasses, right? So I don't really see what the big deal is with this, Craig. I still don't get it.
The basic decency of British people. It's simply that there's been a disproportionate voice from a very well-funded lobby, and it has the ear of government, it has the ear of the press, a lot of it, but it isn't in accordance with basic British values, and I think any government that continues in the direction that it's going may well face difficulties, frankly.
Bizarre.
It is bizarre that your behaviour is what's bizarre with this. It's you that's bizarre.
Now close my eyes, I may think, is that a man or a woman? Whereas previously I would probably be thinking definitely a man. So the voice of this person has somehow managed to change.
So the thing with the hate crime is you can think all sorts of things. We all can. And I'm not even saying that I don't agree with the hate crime legislation. But you can't, there's some things you can't say. And I think what you're doing here, Craig, is it's inhumane. You know, it's like, you know what's happened. You know that Dr. McLeod was male and is now female. Now you're doing this on the basis of of J.K. Rowling's £70,000 court battle with the Scottish government, and somehow and Victoria McLeod mentioned, was it Goodwin's case, and that was back before 2004 and the Gender Recognition Act. So you're sort of ignoring all that just to push a narrative, to spread disinformation. But what we're going to get onto
in a few months.
So all he's really talking about is she's got makeup, she's brushed her hair, and any woman is capable of doing that. Any woman is capable of not brushing her hair or not putting makeup on. And that is completely normal.
And it seems to be dependent on the topic we're talking about. And also, we managed to dye her hair, find a comb, and brush her hair, comb or brush her hair, find a bright red lipstick, and the need for a big pair of red glasses.
Well, it's not really bright red, but never mind. You know, are we jealous again? Is this a problem with Craig? Because we've already realised he's resentful of Dr. McLeod because she's a doctor and he isn't. But we'll get on to...
Which we did indeed when we were talking about general litigation issues in a previous output. That's bizarre to me.
I think it's just
not only I want to look more like a woman because I'm talking.
You're getting into an area you shouldn't be in, because you're not capable or you're not really interested in this topic. You're just pushing some silly sort of opinion of something that you're not interested in and you don't care about for whatever reason. Is it just for the views? It's 7,000 views. Spreading misinformation to Rangers supporters. That's what you're doing.
All the trans stuff. I want to sound more like a woman.
Right, well, that's absolutely normal. That's why the NHS gives speech therapy to transgender women. If you don't agree with that, well, obviously you don't agree with that. But I mean, it's part of the transgender protocols of the Scottish Government. It's facial hair removal, speech therapy, and I think you can get wigs on the NHS here. We'll call it here, whatever it is. Similar to spectacles, isn't it, on the NHS?
Just be whatever you are without any cosplay, if you don't mind.
Right, so we've already covered this because we did a video about him wearing a suit and everything, and how he does cosplay. So now we're going to go on but we'll have a look at this piece. It's not a video, but I'll have a look. Hang on. So what I'm really looking at, well, hold on. What I'm really getting at with this is the inhumane side.
So now on to the story.
The inhumane side of Craig.
This judge, ex-judge,
how he's been inhumane.
Supreme Court. Right,
so a lot of people are inhumane, and YouTube is a very hold on. YouTube is
and this story says
it's kind of
Britain's first transgender judge.
It's kind of narcissistic. It's very narcissistic. YouTube. It's voyeuristic. It's a lot of things. So it's really based on corporate greed. YouTube. It's an American corporation, and Craig's making money from that, and he's making a living out of that. And there is sort of negative human side of it. There's also positive side of YouTube as well. And generally I'm talking about the internet. I'll just, Craig, can you shut up a bit, please?
Infringement of her Article 6.
So it is a narcissistic platform. you're going around videoing, and there's videos that I do that are narcissistic, and it doesn't mean that I'm a narcissist, but I've got narcissistic traits, so Craig has as well. So you're going about videoing people that perhaps don't want to be videoed, or you're talking about stuff that people don't want to talk about, you know, and there is an element in that. And then there's also the viewers who are implicit in that, so it's like a 50-50 thing. So there's a video maker and there's a viewer. So obviously in the public realm, obviously politicians and, well, Victoria McLeod's a doctor, but she's a trans. She's not trans. See, I don't believe that. She could say she's a trans judge, right? So you're either a male or a female. So the government has allowed you, and they have done since 2004, to change from male to female or from female to male, and she's changed from male to female, and that's what's happened. She's done it legally. Now Craig doesn't approve of that. He doesn't agree with that. So what he should say, he should explain that he doesn't believe in that, and I think that's perfectly fine, that you can, and all the rest of it, biological sex, all this stuff. But he hasn't. I don't think he's even really explored the topic. He's just kind of like hovering around the edge of it, and taking the plunge, because it's not costing him anything. He's got nothing to lose, and he doesn't really care. So what I'm pointing out here is how inhuman he's being towards that judge, that lady, Victoria McLeod. And in the height of the hypocrisy, we're going to look at this video. It's not a video, sorry. It's a piece in the Glasgow Times that Craig was interviewed.
Rights. Article 6 of the Human Rights Convention.
Oh, shut it, Wally. Right, so Craig Houston. Let's get it zoomed in, right. I apologise. Right, this is from the Glasgow Times. Celtic Rangers. Yeah, it's something I've always managed to stay out of. I'll be quite honest with you, I'm not a football person, so I never have been. I'm not one of these footballing types. If I was to support a team, no, I'm not even going to go there, right? I'm not interested in football, so there's no point in me pretending that I support Rangers, because I don't, right? Because I'm not interested in football, right? So, I'm not really into sport. I never really have been. Okay, enough about me. Who cares about me? Enough about me. It doesn't matter what I think about football. Football's football. There's already, well, it used to be just men, but now it's women as well. There's men running around, jumping around in a football pitch, feeling up each other's testicles and jumping up and down, giving each other kisses. And they're not fucking... Can I say this? They're not that way inclined. But they jump around kissing each other in a football pitch, and then they go and get drunk or drink and eat pies. That's what they do. Craig Houston. My thoughts of suicide, battle with depression, fight... maybe I'm not allowed to say that, am I? Fight... Maybe we could just... Craig Houston, my thoughts of unaliving, battle with depression, fight for my family and crusade for Rangers. I have to say, looking at him, he doesn't look happy. I don't think he's ever really looked happy. But this was in 2015. So, he was a fan of the stands who took to the streets, a lifelong light blue who became a figure to rally around for his fellow supporters, from protests to boardroom meetings, legal letters to Rector's box. Craig Houston's part in Rangers' recent history will be remembered for years. Mind you, we were round there and we've never seen any sign of him at Ibrox. So they obviously don't care about him that much. To how come his book, Sons of Struth, Demand the Truth? Yeah, I'm demanding the truth off you, Craig. Tells his story, despite parts, blah blah blah. But right, read his battle with depression. It's almost got the better of him. His personal life suffered. How a chilling message was delivered, and about the night his father joined him at the top of the marble staircase. God, they must be well off having a marble staircase. Right, no, that'll be in Ibrox. Sorry, right. The pressure I felt when I was being sued for 200 grand by Sandy Easdale was immense. I was on the edge constantly as a result. Well, what sort of business did you have if 200 grand's going to knock it off kilter? You know? It must have been a bit iffy. probably average 4 hours sleep a night. I would be awake for hours digesting it on the day in the news. Stories about Rangers at the time are pretty much constant, thinking about my next move. And I go over things in my mind again and again. What haven't I done? If the vote went against us, I was personally responsible for every single person who held up red cards at a protest. What a clown. I experienced visions of faces of all the people who had come to meetings distributed helped us through it. It was a horrible time. Sandy Chugg saw it and became concerned. I had suffered from depression on and off in the past. It first happened when I was working down in London for a spell. The pile of ashes and chilling messages that sent out the warning, "We know where you live." I was commuting between there and Glasgow at weekends. That was difficult to say, so probably one of the factors coming to break up of my marriage. No, I think it's because your wife realised you're a fanny. I went through a bout of depression without... Women are weird that way, and I have experience of women, and if they think you're a fanny, they'll get rid of you, and the government will pay, and you'll end up paying for everything. The government will look after them, and that's how they can do it. So if they get a man who's not quite a man like you, Craig, then they'll just get rid of you, and that's what your wife did. I went through a bout of depression without realising it. It was only when I came out the other side of it that it dawned on me what had actually happened. Depression is terrible, horrible, savage thing. You get to a point where you're convinced there's no way out of the predicament you're in. I would compare it to being stuck at the bottom of the well and reaching for the sky but being unable to scale the walls. I actually started to think, would the world be a better place without me? Maybe it might be, aye. It got so bad at one point that I even considered ways I could end my life. It didn't seem abnormal to think that way either. I was in a well-paid job at the time. Money wasn't an issue. Well, 200 grand was. My business partner and I had 2 company cars at the time. One was a Bentley and the other was a Jaguar. So you got the Jag. But the pressure of work, of being away from home, of not being around to help raise my young children all took a toll. Well, that's just modern life, innit? Managing my own business was a large part of it. I was in charge of a company which was generating millions of pounds a year in revenue and several staff members. There were great expectations when I got to work and my head couldn't cope. I started thinking crazy thoughts, which to me at the time seemed completely irrational. Irrational. I'd even gone so far as to contemplate crashing my car as I was driving back to Glasgow on the M6 and killing myself. That seemed rational to me in that appalling condition I was in. I would think if I don't drive up the road with 6 cans of Red Bull and the air conditioning full blast this Friday, as usual I'll get really tired and it'll be easier to crash my car. How selfish. Right, so... I won't read all this, it'll take too long. You don't speak to people about these things, at least men in Scotland don't. Yeah, but you can go on about trans judges though. Don't share your feelings when you're depressed, but get off your chest as a help. The doctor told him he's clinically depressed. Right, what's my point? Well, he hasn't learned. He hasn't... This is all about his depression. I definitely fell down to the bottom of that well again. It was hard to see a way out at times. So the pile of ashes. I'm just sort of trying to paraphrase this, but there's some guys. His neighbour. He lived in a quiet cul-de-sac, and his neighbour. Oh, very nice for you, Craig. Living in a quiet cul-de-sac. Neighbour said, "Who were the guys at the door?" There's people with transit vans dumped a pile of ashes at his door. And the guy, his neighbour says, "Who have you upset?" "I haven't upset anybody." "All right. Well, they weren't here looking for me." So there we go. Right, that's enough of that just now. My thoughts of suicide, battle with depression. Right, so we've got all that sort of thing. So you know what I'm going to say now, don't you? I'm going to finish up by saying...
And this is what the judge is arguing. Last year, MacLeod sought to have leave to join the litigation to sound more like a woman.
You want to sound more like a woman?
Be a person has somehow managed to change
values, and I think any government that continues in the direction that it's going may well face difficulties, frankly.
Bizarre. If I now close my eyes, a man or a woman, whereas previously I would probably be thinking definitely a man.
And I think any government that continues, frankly.
Bizarre. If I now close my eyes, I may think, is that a man or a woman? Whereas previously I would probably be thinking definitely a man. Bizarre. If I now close...
that continues in the direction that it's going may well face difficulties, frankly.
Bizarre.
Bizarre. It's bizarre. Right, so we'll have a look at something else now. Hang on. So you'll be glad to know that I've... right, so I've had a look at the unaliving rates, right? So what I've actually discovered, and I'm going to be honest with you, because what I was going to say was... So who has the highest unaliving rate by genders? It's men. When some of those people die. So that was more men die. More men. So the transgender stuff. Let's have a look at that. Okay. Oh, I don't think you're supposed to say that. In India, it's about 31%. 50% of them attempt suicide, suicide at least once before their 20th birthday. But I think this would be one of these things where it's actually difficult to quantify the US. Now the problem is, this is like a lot of stuff if you're looking for information. So that one there, so if you click on that, it's like trying to find out about climate change by asking people who are selling wind farms. That's the problem. So there's a government UK. See, even that could be a bit iffy, but it should give you a bit of an idea. There's a review. Tavistock Portman. Right. So what it says here is what I've been trying to say. The evidence on that risk in children and young people with gender dysphoria is generally poor. Most studies are methodologically weak, based on online surveys, and self-selected samples come from biased sources. There are good reasons to believe that their risk is high compared to other young people. Okay, they have often experienced prejudice, intimidation, isolation and family conflict. They may have mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety, high rates of autism. These are known risk factors. Suicide in any group is usually a result of multiple risks acting in combination. So this seems to be a result of the recent court ruling. So it does not support. So this is another example of the people pushing the trans activism thing are using this unaliving thing as a tool to push for trans rights or whatever. Right, so I mean I don't agree with that obviously, but never mind. So so let's see what the... Right, so we'll just read this bit. In the end, this is about a group of young people at risk of unaliving and our collective responsibility to their safety. This means specialist health service with the capacity to respond to rising demand and appropriate skills in general services. It means a measured public discourse, making sure we do not stoke up prejudice or cause unnecessary alarm to young people and their families. I'm going to read that again. This means it means a measured public discourse, making sure we do not stoke up prejudice or cause unnecessary alarm to young people and their families. That could be applied to adults. They were talking about autism and all these different things. So when you're dealing with people who... this is for Craig. I mean, you've opened up about your depression and your unaliving thing and all that, and yet you've went on to be quite malicious towards other human beings who also have a predisposition for that. And the figures are a bit hard to find, but I did realise that males are at a higher risk. So I would say you should get out of that topic. You're not interested in it. And you're so what it this sums you up, Craig, is it means a measured public discourse, making sure we do not stoke up prejudice. That's what Craig's been doing with these trans videos. He's been stoking up prejudice or cause unnecessary alarm to young people and their families, and this is about young people, but it's also about adults. So for Craig, it means a measured public discourse. So we don't need your baseless opinions on something that you're not interested in and you're just going on it to get views. So making sure we do not stoke up prejudice or cause unnecessary alarm.
I've built a society where, we must pander to the minority, regardless.
What he's doing is pandering to the majority, which is 52%, which is women. He doesn't want to pander to a minority, he wants to pander to a majority, and he's been misled by J.K. Rowling. This isn't about women's rights. This is about radical extremists, radical feminists. That's what it's about, and you're pandering to them, Craig.
Of the consequences. But what I'm glad to report is, I have seen a switch away from that.
Where have you seen that? In your own living room?
Where people are going,
I think we're going no to you. The Rangers supporters are going to love you because they're all dumb, aren't they? They're just Rangers supporters. They don't want to get any better. They don't want to learn anything or get improve their lives. They just want to listen to you. Obviously, that's how your channel's doing so well.
the most important thing of all, unless you're a crackpot who should know better.
Right, that's Craig. He's a crackpot who should know better. So we're going to end it at that. So thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. And we'll get to you on the next video. Don't hate on people. And don't commit hate crimes. Or try not to. And try and learn something about a topic instead of just... He doesn't want to learn about it. That's the annoying thing about it, isn't it? So, we're away. Bye!